Hi, everybody. I want to welcome you to a retro episode of World's Finest True Believers. When we moved the show to the Geek Ultimate Alliance network, we could not easily drop all the previous shows into the feed. So what we decided to do was to drop them every other week so new listeners can get a chance to hear them, and our veteran listeners of the show can revisit some of these golden oldies. If you like the show, please give us a review and rate us on Apple Podcast or whatever your podcatcher choice may be. I hope you enjoy this retro episode, and I'll see you all next week with a brand new episode of World's Finest True Believers. Hello, and welcome to World's Finest True Believers. Each episode, a guest and I will discuss one of our favorite comic book arcs or graphic novels from any publisher. My name is Chris. Thanks for joining us. Now let's get started. So I have a new guest joining me tonight, and he's a new guest to the show, but definitely not definitely I would consider him a good new friend I've been able to get to know, and very happy to have him on the show. Travis, why don't you say hi to everyone?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Chris. I'm thoroughly excited. I'm a big fan of your podcast. I've been listening to it since before we started going on the Super Civil Servants podcast with Greg and Nathan and Katie to talk Friday nights, and I've been a huge fan of it. All the guests that you have been fantastic, and I hope I can live up to it even a little bit.
Oh, I'm sure you definitely will. So why don't you tell us about yourself? Since I know you, but no one else really does know you. Maybe some of our listeners do, but
Well, I guess 32-year-old big kid. I'm a quality control inspector for ships, oil rigs, etc. Very boring in my work life, but I'm a big fan of comic books, comic book genre. To the topic we're going to talk about tonight, got into it from a video game, so that was kind of a new thing for me, and I like them all. It doesn't matter if it's DC, Marvel, Vertigo, anything. As long as it's a good story, it got me.
nice. And I think you're actually our first international guest.
Yeah, good old Canada. I live in a small island in Canada called Newfoundland. If anyone's seen the play on Broadway, Come From Away, that's the area that I live in. Well, not quite Gander, but only 3 hours away. And it has its own time zone. That's a fun fact that is not very good when you're podcasting with people that are in the normal time zones.
Yeah, it's interesting when you've told me the time zone difference. That you are right; it is unique to yourself. So, well, good. Well, thank you for coming on. And my ceremonial first question for all new guests is: what was the first comic book or graphic novel that hooked you?
The first comic book that I read that I can remember was based on the 1995 Spider-Man the Animated Series show. I was a huge fan of that show, and that
Oh
pretty
yeah.
much pushed me towards comics and things of that nature. I was into it for a bit when I was younger like that. Got a little bullied because of that. Kind of took a step back from comics for a little while, and have been dove in since I want to say '06, since I graduated high school. I've been reading off and on. I gotta say I'm more of a DC guy than a Marvel guy, but like I said, any story as long as it's good gets me. I didn't read House of M, but after listening to you and Greg talk about it so much, and I really enjoyed the conversation, I immediately dove in. So that's pretty much where I am. If I get a recommendation, I'm all over it. And there's some comics like Doomsday Clock that I would read when they come out. But for the most part, I'm just trying to catch up on the glorious content. If DC Universe app was available in Canada, I might be catching up a little bit quicker. But I just love the medium, and I really enjoy when the movies and television take from the comic book history of the characters.
Yeah, no, I know you and I have gone at length of the fault of DC Universe not being international at the very least, so that you could access it. But hopefully, maybe one day. So let's why don't you tell our listeners what we are talking about tonight?
We are talking about Tom Taylor's glorious run for his story Injustice. We're going to talk about year one because if we were to talk about all 5 years, I would be on here till 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. It's quite a long run. Even just this year one is, well, 36 issues on my online comic reader. So that's quite a doozy when I don't have the omnibus for that. I'm not quite that kind of baller yet, but uh, it is a big world, and it's a really cool Elseworld story that I think I got hooked on a little bit from Justice League animated series when they had the Justice Lords two-parter where the Justice League basically takes the world under their thumb and places it to make sure nothing else happens. But you get into totalitarianism and stuff like that. So it's just great. I love it, and I couldn't believe how far they would go. But considering it's an Elseworld story, I'm glad that he was able to be like given free reign to do whatever he wanted in this. It's such a marvelous story.
Yeah, no, it's one that I've recently, before you even suggested, started getting into. So it was a great suggestion. I'm glad I've been very, very impressed with what was done. So did you read this first run, or did you kind of discover it later on?
I discovered it after I played the video game. I didn't play
Okay.
the video game upon release. I played it, I want to say maybe a year after it was released, and I was just like, what's going down with Superman? This is crazy. And then I read that it was based on a comic, like there was a comic to go with it. So of course I went all in on that. But luckily I started it, I want to say after all, like Injustice, the first run was over. So I didn't have to wait for issues to come out. I don't know how good it was, or if it was more like Doomsday Clock, where you're sitting around waiting for 6 months for an issue. Uh, I'm not sure on when the release dates were, but I got to binge it all, and I basically sat down for, I want to say 2+ days, and went through the 5 years, and it was
Wow.
glorious. It was great. It was just after I finished a long stretch at work, something like 45 days in a row, including weekends. So I was burnt out from real life, so the real world. So this was a great escape. And this honestly is one of my favorite. I was so glad when I messaged you and you told me that nobody had called dibs on this, and I was just like, mark me down because I want to discuss this comic.
No, it's definitely a great suggestion. And so let me read a quick synopsis from our lovely folks at Amazon.com. And I'm not a sponsor. I'm just trying to give credit where credit is due. So Superman is Earth's greatest hero, but when the Man of Steel can't protect the thing he holds most dear, he decides to stop trying to save the world and start ruling it. Now the last son of Krypton is enforcing peace on Earth by any means necessary. Only one man stands between Superman and absolute power, Batman. And the Dark Knight will use any method at his disposal to stop his former friend from reshaping the world in his shattered image. Forget everything you know about the DC Universe. Tradition is tossed aside and chaos erupts. Injustice, Gods Among Us, is inspired by the video game phenomenon. That is, you know, pretty good hints of what is there, but just, setting up what the chaos, like they said, the chaos that's about to ensue.
Yeah, they don't really spoil anything, which is great, but they do give a good setup there. And it, most of the time, you would think that Batman would be the one that would lead, from the way their characters are portrayed, that Batman would be one that lose control one day and try to police the world and get rid of all the threats. But when we get into discussions here, you can easily see why it is Superman. Batman has already gone through his crucible, and
Mm-hmm.
Superman really didn't, in this story anyway, go through one at that point in time. He still had both his parents alive. So you can see how just this thing, a terrible, terrible tragedy, mind you, but this tragedy really breaks Superman.
Yeah, definitely. So we will definitely delve into that tragedy very shortly. So let me kind of look at our main writer for this, and that'd be Mr. Tom Taylor. Anything you know about Tom Taylor? Just any experiences, any kind of creations that you've seen outside of Injustice?
Deceased. I really enjoyed the Deceased run that he's been on right now, well, a little while ago.
Hmm.
That I enjoyed that. That's the only other run-in I had with Tom Taylor. but this is already, he's revered for me just for this Injustice comic.
Yeah, no, this I like I said, I discovered this, very within the last 2 months. At that point, knew of it, but Deceased, I read. I've read some of his stuff on. I believe he's on Spider-Man right now, and a few others. But yeah. So here's some. He's written for X-Men, X-Men Red, All New Wolverine, The Hunt for Wolverine, Adamantium Agenda, Injustice 2, Batman Superman, Green Lantern Corps, The Edge of Oblivion. He is born in Melbourne, Australia. So he is an Australian. He is the creator with Tom Brower of all ages adventure graphic novel The Deep Here Be Dragons and its sequel The Vanishing Island, and published by Boom Studios. And it was actually optioned for a 26 episode CG animated show where Taylor's actually serving as creator and head writer, and apparently it streams on Netflix. In 2012, it won the Aurelius Award for Best Illustrated Book and Graphic Novel, which is Australia's premier selective fiction literary award. And the sequel won the award again in 2014. So definitely not familiar with it, but it's nice seeing it's not just superheroes that win him the acclaim too. He's very seems to be very good at doing these types of stories as well. Interesting enough, he performing and writing for theater and musicals from the age of 14, and his works have been produced across 4 continents. His plays have won a number of awards and accolades, including winning the award for Best Dramatic Writing in Short and Sweet, the world's largest short play festival. And his plays have been produced in the Sydney Opera House, Melbourne Arts Centre, and Edinburgh Fringe. So that is something you don't see too often. You see a lot of short story writers, novelists. This is, I think, my first playwright.
Yeah, you don't really see that too often, and normally the comic book people venture out after doing some successful runs into like helping write TV episodes like Jeff Johns, or movies like Tom Taylor and Jeff Johns. So you don't normally get this level of writer going into comics, and it's pretty cool to see. And you can easily tell like we will talk about it. There's a number of different artists throughout this run, but Tom Taylor stays the same, and that's just perfect because he has a really good grasp on this story with these characters.
No, definitely. And so some other things, he's well known for his many Star Wars comics and graphic novels for Dark Horse. Some include Star Wars Blood Tie, Star Wars Invasion. He also did some work with Darth Maul, just a number of different things, just a sampling of the Star Wars work. He also wrote for The Authority, which was published by Wildstorm. He also wrote the Brainiac Sinestro Corps storyline for the pages of DC Universe Online Legends. And the Taylor's award-winning play, The Example, has also been adapted into a comic book with illustrations by Colin Wilson through Gestalt Publishing. So again, a very unique and interesting background, and he'll make comments about how his playwriting, his short playwriting or short story playwriting helped him in creating the story in its original form.
Yeah, this is fantastic work, and I don't think before this we've anywhere got this kind of story with these kind of lasses in DC world. This is pretty staggering. And for him, he nails every character. And what you said about him writing for Sinestro, that makes sense. We won't be talking about year 2 here, but Sinestro comes into play in year 2, and he pretty much got a perfect handle on that character, in my opinion. And that doesn't surprise me now, learning that he wrote for Sinestro as well.
Yeah, definitely. And so usually we do delve into the artist, but this year 1, and I think after that, they do have a series of artists going on with this one. So unfortunately, there's looking at about 7 to 8 artists at that point, but I do want to name them and praise them for their work in presenting this in year 1. So I apologize also in advance of the possible mispronunciations, but I do want to honor them for their contributions to this. We have Jeremy Riapak. He is quote unquote the main artist. Axel Gimenez, Mike S. Miller, Bruno Redondo, David Yardin, Tom Denerick, Neil Googe, and Zermanico.
Quite a list of artists there. I enjoy the Jeremy's cover art. He seems to be the one that did the most of the cover art for year one anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he nails all the cover art is fantastic.
Oh, I completely agree with that. So, got a few. I was able to piece together a couple of key interviews that Tom Taylor did in the getting ready for the release of Injustice. Now, the unique thing about this was, well, I'll get into that a little bit, and he'll mention it during the interview. So the first interview was entitled From Gods and GIF Files, How Tom Taylor Manages DC's Injustice, from Previews World, January 2013. They asked, the book you're doing for DC is a print version of stories which will be released digitally. Who approached you to do this adaptation, and explain how you landed the gig? And he said, I've recently written for National Comics, Rose and Thorn, and Batman Legend of the Dark Knight story, and I was really keen to keep working with the fine people at DC and Burbank. I have a real soft spot for the Burbank crew. This began when Christy Quinn and Ben Abernathy let me hang out at the DC Green Room at Comic-Con, and before that, the writing gig for The Authority. I just was coming off of writing Darth Maul and Boba Fett, and I had a rare open window. And the first editor I contacted, and I got along with really well, wanted to work with me again from our days in The Authority. And from there, I landed the book the usual way, through unhealthy mix of extortion and blackmail.
Well, that's the best way to get it, I guess.
Yeah. And then another interview you did called Australian Made, Injustice, Gods Among Us, comic adaptation interview with Tom Taylor by Steve Farrelly in January 2013. They ask, I know you're a massive Superman fan, and being able to write him must have been something of a dream come true. Is it more refreshing to be able to tackle this left of center soups, or more of a challenge? And he responded, writing Superman for the first time is huge. This has always been my comics writing goal. However, Injustice has really destroyed me. I'm literally torturing my heroes. It's been the hardest thing I've ever had to write. You'll see by page 9 of chapter 3 exactly what I'm talking about. And when it happens in chapter 4, we'll rock some people. This is probably the most challenging writing I've ever done. People are going to be genuinely upset. After this, I'll probably just want to write a story where Superman lies in a sun-drenched daisy field and has wonderful dreams.
No, that does not surprise me. He even gets somewhat of a really good Superman story in this year one run, but I can understand, especially this first time writing Superman. Really nice too what they said about him just being center left. I think that's really common for what Superman becomes in this book.
Mm-hmm.
I would say more like a tyrant. That would be my call, but that must have been a blow to him too, a little bit. Because if your goal was to write Superman to get the job, but then realize what you have to make Superman do in this story, it couldn't have been easy for him for sure.
Oh, no. He'll get into this. The last interview comes from IGN. Injustice, Gods Among Us gets a comic book prequel written by Joey Esposito in also January of 2013. IGN asked, fighting games aren't typically known for their narratives. What are the challenges in providing a backstory for a game like this? And he responded, you're right. Fighting games aren't typically known for their narratives. They're more known for their sudden, irreparable spine removals. However, I'm happy to report in between all the brutal punches, kicks, whips, knives, claws, arrows, blood, people are being pounded through buildings, batterings to the face, and superpowered uppercuts that can launch a person into orbit. The writers have actually written an incredible story. And to tell you the truth, when the script arrived, I rolled my eyes, gritted my teeth, and prepared to read through what I assumed would be a standard script to fighting game. However, with some ham-fisted dialogue, followed by some flaky reason to want to take out the opponent's ribs one at a time. And then I started reading it, and I read the entire thing in one sitting, and then I grinned. This really is the most ambitious script I've ever seen from a fighting game, and the NetherRealm guys have pulled it off. So the challenge is not how do I make this interesting, but how do I complement what these guys have done? How do I too find that perfect balance between emotional epic storytelling and sudden irreparable spine removal?
Really sounds a little bit like Mortal Kombat in there too.
Well, it is NetherRealm. They who are the I can't remember if they're the creators, but they're definitely the ones who have been continuing on the franchise.
Yeah, and they sneak a little. Somebody says fatality in one of the issues. I can't remember exactly which one. I thought there was a little subtle nod to Mortal Kombat in there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
just it's just great. And like you said, I didn't see anything like this in terms of fighting games because I'm not a big fighting game fan besides Mortal Kombat growing up, and that was more because there was blood in it. I was a Sega guy, so that was one of the things that could hold over the people who had Super Nintendo for a little while anyway. And I have fallen out of the Mortal Kombat games. I haven't played anything like Tekken or anything like that. But in that game with the story mode, that's all I played, and I enjoyed the heck out of it. So
Mm-hmm.
just when I read this comic afterwards, it was awesome, to be honest with you, Chris. It was something I didn't expect, especially with how people have revered some of these characters are for DC. To let him do what he did was pretty ambitious on their part as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. They continue to ask, is it freeing to work in an alternative sort of universe like the uh, one in this one, challenging in any way? And Taylor said, I've actually been pouring my heart and soul into this one. Superman has been my absolute hero for as long as I can remember, and for reasons that will become obvious, this has been very, very hard to write from this point of view. Yes, it's been freeing, probably the most freeing thing I've ever worked on in licensed comics. There has been nothing off the table with this series. Everything you will read will be how I wrote it. They follow up by saying, what options does doing a book digitally open up for you, storytelling wise, any particular challenges? And he says, as a playwright, I've written a lot of 10-minute theater and musicals. As a screenwriter, I've also written 10-minute films. I've used the writing as a compact form and revel in it. I think it's because I have no attention span and I assume I'm not alone. I want to cater to those who want something happening in every moment. And I absolutely love the 10-page chapter you get with Digital First. It's a challenge, there's no doubt about it, but I'm trying to make every 10-minute chapter 10-page chapter have as much content as a 20-page comic would. I want everyone who buys the digital comic every Tuesday to feel like they've gotten a whole chunk of story. Nothing in this series should feel like padding. This requires a certain economy in writing. It's like Twitter. You only have space for the good bits. And well, I mean, it's interesting hearing him. Again, it's a challenge, but he revels in that challenge.
Mission accomplished, I would say, for him, because there is something happening in every issue. Uh, it was like, it's bonkers, to be honest with you. I didn't expect it to go the way that it did, even though I played the game. I didn't think they would be as in depth with the whole pretty much character dying almost every issue kind of deal. And some of it is pretty shocking to me. We'll get into it later, but like the Green Arrow, stuff like that, like my favorite heroes, nobody's safe, so you just never know.
Hmm. And so the final little background from this, before we get into it, from IGN asked him, what was the challenges of maintaining a balance between the characters in terms of their core personalities that were familiar while molding them into fit into the Injustice universe? And he said the main challenge has been that molding. When we first see our characters, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern, Green Arrow, and so many others, they are very much the characters we know and love. I grew up reading DC Comics. These are my heroes. I have a lot of respect for these characters, and I don't want to cheapen them in any way or write them acting in a way that I know they wouldn't. Yes, the characters will be significantly changed by the events and circumstances, but I've wanted to make sure that this is a slow, natural change to the personalities and principles.
Yeah, he called his shots because everything he's saying in these interviews, I think he did.
Hey everyone, before we go to the next topic, we are going to head into some ads that help the Geek Ultimate Alliance keep the lights on. We don't get to choose what ads come on, and they sometimes can be a bit loud, so I want to give you a 3 count in order to give you the opportunity to turn your volume down before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be back in a little bit. No, I completely agree. And so, before we start jumping into this, I always ask the question, is there any background information to set this up? I think the biggest thing, kind of like you said, I did play the video game. I don't think I finished it. I'm a gamer, but fighting games have never been my forte. But I see this. I heard a lot of positive press about this, and so I did a little quick refresher on YouTube of some of the cinematics to kind of understand where the video game kind of was where it was coming from at that point. But this story is set 5 years before the main game, so it is a quote unquote prequel to the game itself.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a shocker to me when I first started reading it. I couldn't believe that it was set 5 years in the past and how much I had to read, how much content I got. So I think it was a smart plan because even though you would expect people with 5 years in between the events that you're leading up to and what your story you're telling to have some slow burns and some slower issues, he does not. Everything's in here for a reason. And
Hmm.
you can tell there was nothing. I don't think there was anything like an editor took out or anything anybody told him he had to have in this book. I think he had free reign, and he absolutely nailed it for me. Anyway, I think it's just great.
Yeah, and one more thing was as it kind of hints towards it. One, this is on DC Universe, and I know that's a sticking point with you, Travis. But it all the entire, I believe, the entire Injustice arc, including the follow up Injustice 2, are on there. But at least all 5 years of the first arc are there. But this, as I said, it was issued in 10 pages digitally first. I think once a week, and then they were collected once a month in print form. So there are technically 12 print issues. So basically, three or so issues to a print comic at that point. So I have the omnibus, so that's what I'm kind of basing my knowledge of at that point in my reading. But again, this is a crazy, amazing story, and so now I think that we've gushed about the background, gushed about what it is. I think it's time to start getting into it. And so it is technically quote unquote 12 issues. There is an annual with it, but I think we're gonna. I don't know if we'll get to the annual at that point, but we'll probably mainly stick to the 12 issues. But we're gonna do something a little different tonight, and that because there is so much in every one of these issues. I mean, we are not kidding. I'm not exaggerating, but there is so much. And again, we spoil on the show, so full warnings ahead of time. But what I kind of asked Travis beforehand is kind of we'll go issue by issue, but with each issue, Travis is going to talk about like his favorite moment in each issue and just kind of focus on that while giving you just kind of a taste of briefly what the issue was kind of about, but focusing on his quote unquote favorite moments of each one. So are you ready to dive into this amazing story?
Let's do it, brother.
All right, so issue one. So why don't you tell us about what your kind of briefly just talk about what's your favorite part?
There's two for me in this because it's 3 issues
Mm-hmm.
for by digital, and the opening scene where Superman goes to reveal to Batman that Lois is pregnant, and Batman already knows, and he asks Batman to be the godfather. All that is just so great because it just adds an extra layer to Superman and Batman's relationship before things go awry. I
Mm-hmm.
think that is great, just a little bit, but to show how good friends these two are. And when Joker uh, does the dirty work, I found something that he said really stuck with me, and it was he told Batman, "Someone took it all away from you once, didn't they, Bats? You become an
Mm-hmm.
all-punching, all-kicking ball of angst. What do you think Superman will become? He's a god who has deluded himself into believing he's a man. What will he turn into?" I thought that was very maniacal and shows just how, especially when he abducts Lois, it shows how he looks a little bit more scary in this than he does normally. And I thought that was great.
Oh yeah, and just the like you said, it was a great moment between him and Clark and Bruce, just having like how strong that really, but like the kidnapping of Lois and Jimmy is killed in brutal fashion with a gunshot to the head. I did not see that coming, and just with that whole thing, it's just like the happiness these issues start off and how quickly that is shattered.
Yeah, it was pretty shocking to me. Zack Snyder must have read this issue especially for his Jimmy Olsen because he kind of has a similar fate that he meets in terms of
Hmm.
gunshot. But it just shows, and also Superman is still like he goes to Batman immediately to ask for help, and you can tell he's in shock and completely scared because when he finds the Joker card, he knows he hasn't dealt with anybody like this. And Joker says to Batman that like I'm tired of losing to you. I want an easy like layup kind of win, which
Hmm.
really shows another example of Batman's strength to be able to overcome overcome Joker as many times as he does. But it does bring up a lot of questions. Like Batman must question himself for why he didn't take out the Joker when he could have and prevented all of this from happening. Because it's very maniacal. You think that he's just going to take take away from Superman, but instead he takes away the entire metropolis. Which like
Hmm.
to start a book like that, basically taking away New York City. That's something I don't think we've ever seen before in comics.
Yeah, I think the most shocking moment to me is he's Joker has found a way to weaponize the fear gas and the kryptonite to convince Superman that he's not seeing Lois, he's seeing Doomsday. He doesn't realize it and thinks Doomsday's going to be taking Lois, and Joker just is losing his own mind at that point, and Batman's trying to say, "What did you do? What did you do?" And he suddenly realizes it, and he's trying to communicate desperately to Superman, "Don't stop, stop, stop!" And it's too late. He's pushed Doomsday all the way in the outer atmosphere when he realizes, and they say two heartbeats have become none, and Lois and the unborn child are gone, and with it inside of her was basically a trigger that blew up a nuclear bomb in Metropolis. And what a way! I mean, Tom Taylor was not kidding. Where this was a moment I was blown away, and I'm not trying to be no pun intended, but it was just like wow.
Yeah, it was very shocking, and you don't really realize the ramifications of it at the time. Really, you're not sure where it's going to go, and you don't know how many people actually perished. You get more insight into that going forward, but you don't really realize that you lose some Teen Titans, you lose another speedster that we've seen in shows like The Flash. Is all a little jarring, and I cannot kind of understand Superman's rage, but we'll talk about it going forward. But there's some people complicit that are pointing him towards the direction they want him to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Before we kind of get into issue two, if you're getting ready to head into that, I want to kind of some people talk about, and you and I talked a little bit this past weekend with the idea of the quote unquote the idea is could this be another example of fridging character. And if for those listeners who have not been with us, we did talk about the idea of fridging and identity crisis. But for those who don't understand the concept, is that this idea of fridging dates back to a Green Lantern story with Kyle Rayner, where his girlfriend was basically murdered and put into a fridge as a quote unquote seen as a trope to move a plot point along and the hero along. But the IGN actually brought this kind of up to Tom Taylor, and was his response. He said, "When I was told I had to write a comic where my hero was tricked into killing his wife and unborn child, I was horrified. All I've ever wanted to do is write Superman. To have him do this and to have him do this to Lois was a task, frankly, I didn't relish. I'm an only son of a feminist single mother who worked in a woman's refuge where I spent a lot of time in my younger years. I have stood beside her on the stage of rallies for women's rights and protests against domestic violence. I am also a husband and father. My creator-owned series, The Deep, which has just optioned to become an animated series, has no violence in whatsoever. I dislike violence as a rule, and I abhor violence towards women. And so I made my mission to find a way where Superman has absolutely no idea what he was doing. I engineered a situation where he actually thinks he's protecting the woman he loves and his unborn child. I also made it clear to Mark Miller, who was the artist that drew incredibly powerful and emotional pages so well, that at no point does Superman strike Lois. Editor Jim Chadwick and I made sure we tore a hole in the submarine in the previous issues so that Lois would not be pushed through anything. Superman, severely weakened, drugged, and believing Lois's doomsday, grabs Lois and pushes her into space, where she tragically dies. For some, despite the fact that Superman is drugged and thinks he's carrying doomsday, all they could see was a husband killing his wife. I completely understand, and I am truly, truly sorry for this.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like that's why he used it, and it doesn't seem like it is a plot device, yes, but it turns Superman into so much more. The end game isn't just to have Lois die, so Superman does one thing. Superman, this is just his crucible, as he never went, like we were saying before. Ma and Pa Kent are both alive, so he hasn't even went through losing anybody. So this is his first time losing someone that he loves, and he lost both his wife and unborn child. And you hear him say that to Batman later on that that child would have been another Kryptonian, would have been someone that finally truly understood me. And I
Mm-hmm.
would have loved that child more than anything. He said, I already did. So you can tell that it's not just Lois that he uses here. It's both Lois and the child. And you're right, he does not strike her. And his face when he realizes that he took Lois up into the outer atmosphere is just one of pure dread. And I think it just works so well in this story. And there are a lot of powerful female characters in this story as well, and most of them are siding with Superman. I think that I just think that this was the right. I don't think you're gonna get Superman to go against his moral code and his beliefs unless something this jarring happens to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's again, I appreciate him just kind of acknowledging what one would think and how truly shaken he was and did everything possible to make it as it's wrong to say appropriated by any stretch of the imagination, but it was he did the best he could with the task he was kind of asked to do based on where the game was at that point. So yeah, why don't you take us into your favorite part in issue 2?
Okay, I thoroughly enjoy the showdown. I got to make sure we're in the right thing here with
Mm-hmm.
Atlantis. Is that in these 3 issues? I'm not just want to make sure. Or is this
No, I think it's the aftermath and him going after.
Joker? Okay, yeah. Well, I did say the whole thing that Joker says to Batman about like wonder what will happen to Superman. Like you know what happened to you when you lost your parents. I thought that was one of my favorite scenes, and then Superman finally doing the actual thing, putting his fist through Joker, was very shocking to see. That was definitely my favorite from those issues, and it's like I said to you before, it's very similar to me to Justice Lords, where Superman kills Lex after he kills the Flash,
Mhm.
and goes down that dark path as well. So I can see why they even chose this story, because like as that story, I wanted more of that story. They just comic book science the way to take away the hero's powers in that because it was a two-part animated story, so they had to clue it up rather quickly. So I'm glad that we get a different thing here where they explore it more and just show how like far Superman goes. Once you take one life and justify it, you can justify taking more lives, which Superman does. He has good intentions, but he just goes about it the wrong way, in my opinion.
As Joker, I believe, said famously in The Killing Joke, "You're just one bad day from becoming me."
Yeah, which just shows that Superman hasn't been through much. This version of Superman, like I was saying, he has both parents. Both of them are really loving and caring for him. He's just hurting and grieving, and he doesn't really know how to process those emotions. I can imagine that that didn't happen to him too often growing up, and it shows in this. His face, you can see the angst in him, and he's not very afraid to flash the fire eyes.
Yeah, and it's when we get to the arrows, Green Arrow's hiding Harley Quinn because you're afraid of what Superman's going to do, knowing that he's probably going to go after her. But I think you and I would think if we had to pick a runner up for a favorite at the end of this second issue is Superman basically tired of just waiting around and just being tired of conflict, tired of wars, and going into the countries and taking the conflict out. And Wonder Woman coming up and telling him, "You need to make a statement." And basically, I think the quote goes, "And clean yourself up, and you will say what I've been waiting for you to hear since we first met." And basically, making the statement to the world, "War is over. You try me, I'll end it for you."
Yeah, it's very jarring. I can only imagine like the whole world if they saw Superman do that, and that gave me red flags for Wonder Woman immediately. I'm like, okay, this is not a Wonder Woman that truly believes in peace first, and we touch on that later when she's talking to Ares. But this is it's very shocking to see Superman do this, and even though it's very similar to what Iron Man did in the movie, just I know I'm going to be going back and forth, but taking the dictator, leaving him with the people, and letting them have their way with him. I think he brings them to the United Nations instead
Mm-hmm.
in this, but they do that later. They leave a general with the women and give the women the guns.
Yeah,
So that's
definitely later on, but
further down, but it's really haunting. And Wonder Woman is not good in this, and we'll talk about it in the next three issues about her failure to relay a message that I think would have helped Superman if he went to talk to somebody. But no, she's been wanting this. You can tell she's fed up with the way things work in man's world. And Superman, she always says, is the most like impressive being she's ever met. So you knew she was going to side with him immediately.
hmm. Well, I think you kind of did a good segue because the next issue is, we get the Mirror Master and the Ares conversation in this. So yeah, so heading into issue 3, what's your favorite moment in this?
I'm going to give a shout out to Pa Kent and him giving an excellent right cross to one of those SWAT guys and knocking him down.
He's not to be trifled with.
No, they basically scoffed at him first, but that was a really nice right hook. And just to see that the government actually had uh, this plan immediately to put in play, you can tell first they underestimate Superman,
Remember what they say. And the president kind of doubted them. This is basically 100% success.
which we all know. And they said that the president wouldn't be uh, linked back to this, but Batman pretty much immediately deduces what's going down. And he's just like, dude, this is not the smart play at all to the president, which is rather impressive on Batman's part to break in and talk to the president in the White House.
Hmm.
It doesn't paint the government in a good light either, and just gives more credence to what Superman is doing. Because if the government will go and kidnap these two law-abiding citizens that have been nothing but good, like Ma and Pa Kent have done nothing, and just to kidnap him like that and hold him hostage to make Superman do what they want, doesn't paint the one of the supposedly better governments in the world in a very good light.
I agree that it said you're gonna make the most powerful man in the entire universe is 10 times over fall to you and kidnap his parents. Smart move.
Yeah, like Batman immediately is like, this is not going to work at all. I don't know. You're underestimating Superman.
Yeah, exactly. So, any other parts you want to talk about before heading into? I know you talked about it earlier. The next issue would be the Aquaman kind of set up at that point. Anything in this issue you want to kind of bring up and mention?
No, this is just pretty much the main stuff. The Wonder Woman saying that quote from Wonder Woman is the main thing I took from those 3 issues, to be completely honest with you.
Mm-hmm. No, that's good. So yeah, when we head into issue 4, what's your? It's mainly dealing with a confrontation with Aquaman. So what would be your favorite kind of moment throughout that?
One of the moments is them lifting up the entire city of Atlantis and laying it in the Sahara Desert.
Yeah, it's almost interesting, kind of how this conflict kind of starts. It's almost like a complete misunder. I don't know if it's a misunderstanding, but it's almost like Aquaman's kind of throwing his weight around, saying, "You don't control the seas. I do. Get out of my kingdom."
Yeah,
And
and
like you said, they don't take that too well, and we'll remove Atlantis and put it in the desert.
Aquaman's not even really doing anything wrong. At the start, he's stopping whalers from killing more whales, and
Hmm.
which I don't agree. I don't agree with whalers doing that anyway. So the Superman and his team gets an alert of the ship's in distress, and they go and they're like, "Yeah, there's no war if you didn't realize that, and that includes you." And Aquaman's just like, "Excuse me, like you're not the king of Atlantis. You just make sure the surface is good, and I'm okay with that." Which I thought that was okay of Aquaman too. For in terms of Superman, for Superman, I don't see why he took that much of an offense. Uh, Given Aquaman's just like, I don't care what you do out there. You just make sure the seas are safe and I control the seas. If anything happens here, I'm going to take issue with it. And it almost is like Wonder Woman kind of escalates things when they're chatting and somebody shoots her and Arthur goes to say like, "Are you okay?" And she hits him and then everything goes crazy. So yet another thing that I don't think paints Wonder Woman in that good of a light in this story.
Yeah, especially they take it, moving Atlantis there as a hostage thing in order to bring Aquaman to the knees. And you brought up to me today that was even more jarring was when they come to terms. Atlantis has returned, and Arthur tells Wonder Woman, said, "Please let Clark know I'm so sorry about Lois." And when Superman asked, "Was there anything else that Arthur said?" she doesn't even tell him that, and that
No.
is a play of power for her.
Yeah, and he tells her to go to speak to Aquaman because he's done talking to people and she's the diplomat. But we don't see any of that from her. He tells Wonder Woman as well, uh, let Clark know I have like been king and have had a lot of peace. So if he needs someone to talk to about any of this, he can come to me. And she doesn't mention any of that and turns her back on him on Superman when he asks if there's anything else. So it's just like I said, it doesn't paint Wonder Woman in the best light for me. But I think that's a good like place to take her character because she's seen what happened with war. She's seen all the bad things, and she just feels like she's powerful enough to be able to put it into it. And with Superman at her, like with her being at Superman's side, they can accomplish a lot more. And I don't think Superman is even there yet. But I think she's
Hmm.
helping subtly push him there. I think a conversation with Arthur could have really helped maybe stop him from doing that.
Yeah, and before we head on to the next issues, the conversation between Bruce and Clark in the Batcave. I just want to kind of read out as kind of one of my favorite dialogue pieces. Bruce says, "You can't put yourself above us, Clark. You're right. I'm not saying I'd act differently if I had your abilities. I'm not saying I wouldn't try to impose peace, but you." And Superman says, "What? You're a better man than I am." And he asks him, "Bruce, come with me." And he says, "I can't, Clark. I just can't. I'm sorry." And as he goes up the stairs, he sees uh, Alfred coming down. And he says, "Not staying for tea, Master Kent." He said, "I'm afraid not, Alfred. And you don't have to call me Master." And Alfred has a nice little comeback to that and said, "Good. Let's remember that."
Very good. That's a awesome Alfred mom. And to go with what you said with Bruce, he even tells Joker that when they're talking before Superman comes in to kill him. He's like, he's better man than all of us. He's the best man I know. He's like trying to convince the Joker that nothing's going to happen. He's not going to break Superman. but that's not the case here. And I love that Alfred quip at the end. Just uh, you can tell their friendship's eroding, and when Batman puts his head down and says he can't go with him, it's just a gut punch, to be honest with you, Chris.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. So let's hit into issue number 5, I believe. Yep, issue 5. So
Yes,
what's your favorite moment from this one?
is I've got to make sure all these are still the same. Is it the Arkham? Did it get to Arkham in this?
No, I think we're with kind of a Flash kind of moment.
Okay, well, yeah, the Flash has several moments in this, in my opinion, where he rethinks the whole thing, like the whole conflict, this whole decision that they're going on. And I don't think it paints him in, like, people will say, well, the Flash tried to stop it, or in the end, he realized what was going on and decided I don't want to be part of this. But there are so many times when he just sits idly by and lets everything happen. He even touches on that, saying that he was fast enough to react. He could have did things to stop it. And it just makes me sad because Flash is one of those characters that I always thought, no matter what, would be on the right side of things. And to see him go along with Superman just made me so sad right away that I didn't think he would join their crew initially.
Yeah, I was quite surprised too, and I'm mistaken. Yes, this starts the Arkham fights, and it will take us through the next issue. So if you want to kind of talk about kind of, I'm guessing we'll call it your favorite Arkham
But
moment.
just before that, even when they're in the Batcave and Damian doesn't want to go with them, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Nightwing has Batman's back when they're driving there. He's like, I understand, Bruce. I'm behind you 100%. He was like, but he's still apologizing for Damien, saying like, you had enough time to indoctrinate me. Like I've been around you enough to know. And there's a side issue with the Teen Titans where Nightwing comes back to check on them after the events, and they ask him to stay to be leader, but he says no. I need to be by Batman's side for this. He needs me. And we get also a thing of Nightwing and Robin, Damian training, and Nightwing like gets the best of him, showing him like there's a little thing when Robin's only going for the kill
Mm-hmm.
blow, the end blow, and after they're done, Robin throws his one of his sticks at him in anger, and Nightwing was getting ready to catch it, but Clark showed up. That was in the previous one, but that builds towards what we're going to because he says he tries it all the time. I seen it coming, and just to see Batman and Nightwing say, "I got your back. Let's go defend the homicidal maniacs from the superheroes." It's just
Yeah.
classic Nightwing. Tom Taylor has a great grasp on these characters. And like there are points even in this tragic story that I laugh and I smile, and Nightwing was bringing that out of me in these first issues.
Yeah, definitely. And so, they get to Arkham. They're trying to stop basically Superman from doing even more unthinkable acts at that point. And so, yeah, so we're into kind of end of issue 5 into issue 6 with this Arkham fight. So with issue 6, what's kind of your favorite, your quote, and it's what is your moment of this issue?
There are two. First of all, Batman incapacitating Cyborg with a
Mm-hmm.
virus, and
Mm-hmm.
Cyborg being like, "I just updated my firewall last week. What?" And then he realizes after going through the data that Batman uploaded this virus the first week that he met him.
Yep, always the planner.
So it's just like people are like, "That's crazy." Flash is like, "That's crazy even for Batman," and I'm like, "No, he has detailed files on all of you guys. Like, come on, you're all look what happened." Yeah, I'm really
Mm-hmm.
glad he did do that. But also, obviously, it's Nightwing's death that just took me. I couldn't believe that they would take him out so early in this conflict, and it basically sends Damian to a point he'll never come back to Batman.
Yeah, like you said, it's a reference back to he does the same move. He's always thrown his stick at Nightwing, and this time he wasn't ready for it, and he it knocks him kind of not, I wouldn't say necessarily unconscious at that point, but the way he falls, his neck hits basically a rubble piece and snaps his neck, and he is dead instantly.
Yeah, it's pretty shocking, and it like he like knocks off his equilibrium, I think they state, or his balance,
Mm-hmm.
and he tumbles over. The one shocking thing from that whole thing is when Batman comes up and they realize that like he just lost a son. That's how he feels about Dick, and all the fighting stops immediately. Both the villains and the heroes completely stop, and they're both lined up on each side, and Bruce carries Nightwing out. And to show one thing that it shows too, I'm not sure if it's in this issue or next issue, it shows that Superman still cares a great deal for Batman because
Mm-hmm.
he goes to somebody. I'm not sure if
Yep,
this
it
is
is.
okay. Well, he goes to Catwoman, and Catwoman thinks he's going there to take her out because she's a criminal. And in reality, he's going to her to ask her to go comfort Bruce because Nightwing has died. And like it's still like I said, I don't think Superman would have got to the whole tyrant without having some people on his side that pushed him that way. Because here we can still see that he has a heart. He cares because Batman is fully opposing what Superman is doing. Yet Superman is still so concerned about Batman that he will
Yeah.
ask somebody to go and check on him and make sure he's okay.
Yeah, I think, again, it's not only losing Dick, his quote unquote first son, it's that Damien, his blood son, his actual son, is the one who inadvertently took him out, and he can't even bring himself to even look at Damien, and just the rage and how, this, Catwoman going to Bruce and getting him to, grieve in his plan to go to the president saying, I'm going to assemble a team to bring an end to this. And, the issue ends with his team being assembled and, yeah, Captain Atom saying, what's the plan of attack? And that's how that issue ends, moving into issue 7. So lines have been drawn, sides have been chosen, and we're delving deeper into this.
Yeah, I think that this is the point where Batman can't come back from either. Not that he's going to be evil, but that he will never see the side of Superman's side, because there are always going to be casualties when you're doing this kind of thing. And like you said, to lose Nightwing by your own son's hands, and when Nightwing is your adopted son, and I think Bruce did the best job with Dick of all the people that he mentored, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Uh, so it's just because he'll never tell Nightwing how he truly feels, even though Nightwing says while they're driving there that I got your back, and he never even said thank you to that or anything. So
Yeah.
you can tell there's so much regret as Catwoman stops him from punching his basically hand to pieces, and
Hmm.
also Alfred being there liquored up in the chair. That's something that we don't ever see. Alfred's usually a pillar of strength and one of Bruce's rocks, but he really truly loved Dick as well. So it's shocking not just for Bruce but for Alfred as well.
Hey everyone. Before we go to the next topic, we are going to head into some ads that help the Geek Ultimate Alliance keep the lights on. We don't get to choose what ads come on, and they sometimes can be a bit loud. So I want to give you a 3 count in order to give you the opportunity to turn your volume down before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be back in a little bit. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, let's head to the issue 7 that has a couple of kind of big points. But what's your moment of issue 7?
Uh,
We do have a return of a very surprising, very famous DC character makes his first appearance in this issue.
is it Lex Luthor?
You are correct.
Okay, because I just want to tell the listeners, it's 36 issues of digital is what I have read. So sorry if I'm getting my wires crossed at times when we're doing chapters, because
Yep.
it's
I'm
every
such a bad host. I'm such a bad
well,
host.
not really. Like Tom King said, he made so much happen in every digital issue. It's hard sometimes when you're putting 3 together
Hmm.
to make sure you don't skip anything. But Lex having his own bunker is total Lex move, and Jesse Quick, like I said, that he had her on payroll, and
Yeah,
she basically saved his life and then goes out to try to save other people, but it doesn't happen. And but just shows that she was a hero, but she was on Lex's payroll. But in this world, Lex and Superman are friends, so he's not.
that's like the biggest shock to me.
Yeah, I was blown away when he found him and gave him a hug. I was like, "Wha- what now? What?" That was one of the shocking things to me, anyway.
Yeah, and I think, you kind of brought it up earlier with Wonder Woman, saving that village and having giving the weapons to the women to turn on their captors at that point, showing, like you said, this is a very brutal, this is the warrior Wonder Woman, and diplomacy is not necessarily her number one priority, but, Batman, I think, kind of where we're ending the issue. We kind of begin the issue with people explaining, who's, the populace saying, what do you feel about Superman's action? You get like people saying, I think this is great, and people think he's going too far. We end the issue with Batman making his first move in kidnapping Shiera, Hawk Girl or Hawk Woman, and basically hinting that Selena Kyle is going to be, it almost thinks that Selena Kyle is going to maybe replace her at that point, but we'll leave that little idea that I think it's Tom playing with us.
Yeah, it was good by him too. We know after that we he makes the reader think that he just let Shire go, but we know after in the future that that's not the case. He just wanted to get a mole inside to know what was going on, which also makes things more clear to know when Batman knows some of Superman's moves and what he's doing, so that he can counter and do other things while Superman is preoccupied. Uh, I think that that's all just shows the very good tactician Batman is, and he's all these plans. You got to realize he's just thinking of these on the fly because I don't think he in his talks with Joker, I don't think he ever thought Clark would go here when he tells Joker like he's the best man I know. He might have a kryptonite ring in case somebody controls him, but he never would think that Superman would go this far.
I agree. So let's head into issue 8. We bring Apocalypse to Earth.
Yes, that's Calibut tries to jump on this, but he thinks he reads the situation completely wrong, completely wrong.
Oh God, yeah, ooh.
He thinks Superman's right for the taking, but it's the exact opposite, and Superman does not let him get away. It's not that's not what happens this time.
Yeah, no, he gives Darkseid gives his blessing to take Earth for him at that point, and man, poor
Yeah,
poor choice, Cowback.
when he says Darkseid says something to Superman about Darkseid, and Superman's like, "Daddy's not here to protect you." I'm like, "Oh, this is not going to end well for you."
Yeah, and just like the parademons coming down, trying to take over. This is when we see kind of like, okay, lines are not drawn anymore. Everyone's trying to save Earth, and I believe at this moment, this is the point of no return for Superman with what he does next, and what does he do?
You keep going. I want to
Oh,
hear.
okay. Oh, you want to hear? Okay. Yeah, no, he gets to a point where he has to make a decision whether to, you know, say what is he going to do to save lives, and he basically travels the entire globe and basically heat visions every single apocalyptic thing, parademon, everything into tiny bits of dust.
And he has a great conversation with the Flash
Oh yes,
before he
yes.
does that, and Flash is like, "I'm not going to like. You're asking me for permission for to kill, and I'm not going to give you that." But by the time Superman does everything, and what he says to Flash about, we could have easily stopped these people and prevented even more death if we didn't worry about just incapacitating these things instead of killing them. And when you think about how parademons are actually made, and the fact that you can't bring people back or beings back once they are parademons, like there's sometimes I can understand what Superman is saying, and this is one of those times when parademons and Apocalypse are invading Earth. I can kind of get behind him, uh, this is like a faceless army kind of deal. And I can get behind him finishing off these parademons, but just the way he does it is so I don't give a crap about anything.
Hmm. Exactly. So issue 9 is kind of a break in the sense of it's kind of like resetting the deck and reset, kind of checking in on our main players and what's going on and what their next steps are.
Yeah, is Lex up in the Fortress of Solitude in these?
Yes.
Well, that was one of my most fun issues, was him talking with Ma and Pa Kent and them giving him great advice, especially considering it's their son. When
Hmm.
Pa Kent says to him, "When the time comes, I expect you to do what is right," and they basically are telling him to take down his son, which is shocking. But Pa Kent also says, like, you created this super pill or super ability pill. I know you definitely thought of. I'm paraphrasing here, but he's like, I know you definitely thought of what you can use it against Superman as well. Which I love my Pac in this, and they never give up on Clark, but they also don't see his point of view at all. And it's just a great little side issue that I thoroughly enjoy.
Yeah, and just hearing Pa Kent basically say like, if he goes too far, you need to take him out, and just hearing him say that. But I think my other kind of favorite moment is the other part of this issue where Damian comes back, and basically he and Bruce have a huge, obviously, arguments to say the least, and unfortunately Alfred's trying to be the mediator between them, and Damian pushes him down into the stuff, and Batman basically and him get into a fight, and we get a revelation. Shiera shows up trying to, bring Damian back, and Damian realizes something. It's not Shiera. Who is it?
It's Martian Manhunter, and Damian really shows his true "I'm Bruce Wayne's son" mind here, because not too many people would, nobody in the Watchtower noticed, not too many people would, but he immediately deduced who it was and threw an incendiary, thinking that it was Martian Manhunter, who can't go against flame. So it just goes to show the level that Damien's abilities are at in this. And I also like Alfred saying that I sent you a letter, but I didn't know if you would get it because I didn't know a zip code for space.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. So we head into issue 10. Kind of we're marching towards the end very very quickly, and the revelation of Martian Manhunter is brought forward. But what is your favorite part? I'm wondering if it's my favorite part of where Superman plays his ultimate card.
Of outing Batman's identity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was really funny that it was on Twitter. I love how Batman had a contingency plan called Icarus that would shut down everything
Mm-hmm.
uh, Watchtower related. Especially like they're like, his son is on here and he just cut off all the like life support and everything. Like, gee, he's not playing around. But I think Batman knows that they would get the Watchtower back in time to Earth in time. I think he's just doing that for like, sheer just stop him from revealing his identity, not to harm anybody. And instead, Damien goes to both Cyborg and Lex and are like, "You're like the smartest people in the world. You're telling me you can't send a message to the world," and they just create a Twitter account for Superman.
Yeah, it's good. I think my other unfortunate, like you said, it almost seems like every issue we lose a main player is, what really tugged at my heart was the Superman base, Martian Manhunter gets, he's trying to buy time and takes, basically goes into Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman basically tells Superman, burn him out of me, and basically he kills Martian Manhunter.
With zero remorse. Like, there is
Mm-hmm.
no remorse on this. And Martian Manhunter also says a great little line of like, "We're both aliens, but you choose to follow the one that looks like you without any hesitation." And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's just perfect. And also, when Superman outs Batman's identity, Alfred is always like looking out for Batman, and he makes a list for Batman of things he might want to take from the manor. And Batman's like, "You should stay away from me, Alfred. it's not safe. And Alfred's like, thanks for thinking about me, but I'm the first thing on your list. And I absolutely love that.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yep.
was like, I'm like, God, I wish I had an Alfred.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it's a he writes him so well. He is not a prop. He's literally Bruce's father.
Yeah, he's Bruce's rock.
All right, so we've got two more issues left. Issue 11. This is, we get into a major stuff going down at the Fortress of Solitude.
Yeah, this is a kick in the guts for me because Green Arrow is arguably my favorite DC hero. Thank you, Arrow, for that. Shout out, 8 seasons. Boo, booyah.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but he's not like this at all in the show. Very quippy, but I love how him and Batman had a showdown in the new headquarters and are basically like he's like I'm coming, like I can shoot 2 arrows in you. And in reality, if he didn't come, they wouldn't have gotten the thing that they needed.
Yeah, they're going to the fortress to get that pill, get that pill away, and trying to
Yeah,
stage. They're using the president saying, "I want you to stage a conflict so we can distract him," and then that just completely blows up in their face.
yeah. It's only because Batman didn't realize that Superman has his parents in the fortress, and instantly
Mm-hmm.
when the door is open, he immediately is alerted. And Batman's like, "Oh crap, this is not good." And Ma and Pa Kent are like, "You should leave," because they know what is going to happen. But unfortunately, Oliver gets separated from the rest of them,
Yep.
and they have to leave while Captain Atom is running interference at the time to try to let them out. And we can see just how far Superman has gone. And I also blame the United States government for this. After kidnapping his parents, he believes Batman was in on that.
Mm-hmm.
He states that in an
Because
issue.
yeah, it just like Captain Atom is taken out because Wonder Woman pierces him, and he's blown up in the atmosphere at that point, and like you said, they're separated, and it leaves Ollie on one side, and Ollie, Mom, Pa, Ken on one side, and then Batman, Dinah, and the rest on the other side, and Ollie is left with Superman to confront.
Yeah, he shoots some arrows at him, hoping that Superman doesn't pay attention to him, and one of them deflects off Superman and goes into Pa Kent, which causes Superman to go into a rage. His parents are are pleading with him to stop as he smacks Ollie to the side, but Ollie has enough wherewithal to, while he knows he's going to die, first of all, quote the world record for an arrow shot. I thought that was pretty like
Mm-hmm.
self praise is better than no praise, I guess. Saying like I can shoot farther than that, and he takes his tracker off and puts the pill on the arrow and shoots that, sacrificing himself to get the tech they need to stand up to Superman. And this was just goes to show the selfless hero Green Arrow was. And his last thoughts are about Dinah, which, when she says he's not coming and turns around to leave, that's pretty emotional for me. And
Mm-hmm.
while Superman's beating the ever loving snot out of him, his mother takes one of those pills so she can stop him from hitting him even more.
Yeah, and that's you lead us right into the final issue of year one of Injustice. Yeah, so I would definitely have to say I don't think you have one moment you want to talk about it. So tell us about the moments of this final issue.
I enjoy Ma, Pa Kent, and Jor-El trying to reason with Superman. All three of them. I really enjoyed that. They're trying to tell him like, you can't be doing this. This is not good. And Ma and Pa can't apologize to Jor-El after Superman leaves. But what Jor-El says is really the most shocking thing of, "I'm sorry
Hmm.
that I unleashed this upon your world."
Yeah, it's just so painful. All the parents feel like they have failed their son.
Yeah, and that's like it's a different kind of thing. Sometimes you see Jor-El opposed to the Kents. Sometimes like they don't trust him, but in this one, they're all heartbroken for what their son has become. He believes it's Batman's fault, and Batman goes back to the cave to synthesize the super enhanced pill. I don't know what we're going to call that. super pill, I guess we'll call it.
Yeah. Yep.
But he knows that Superman's going to come there immediately. I just would have liked, to be honest with you, Chris, I would have liked him to have like a kryptonite ring or something.
Hmm.
Like normally he has one of those buried in the Batcave. Even Catwoman hints at that
Yeah.
with what she says about where she found a little piece for her earring. But the real thing here is Superman goes Bane and breaks Batman's back, which very shocking. But he also tries to torture him when he realizes that he sent the super pill to somebody. He asks who it was, and he cracks his ribs trying to basically make him talk. And
Yeah.
Batman calls him out on that, which I love that because you could see Batman torturing somebody to get information, but never Superman. And Superman's quite shocked about it.
And it's just that the brutality, not just bending over his knee and hit it and breaking his back once, just doing it a second time, just brutal fashion. And then right before that, how he finds out Superman, there is this unknown person telling him he's coming. We don't know who that is, and I haven't read, beyond this just to keep focused on this part. But there is someone else still helping out these Batman's team. But like you said, just the brutality of Superman, we have never seen him portrayed like this, especially against Batman.
No, he would incapacitate him, but he wouldn't do
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
This is vigilante stuff, which Superman is usually above.
But who got the pill?
Well, there's somebody that took the pill. I can't say who he sent that to,
Yeah, true.
but
But
he
that's what I meant. Like who got the pill?
the main man, Alfred, and he has a fantastic scene of beating the snot out of Superman, which first goes to show how strong these pills are. Is told that it increases your strength 1,000-fold of a normal human, and increases your strength of your skin and your bones. Like it basically makes you invulnerable. And Alfred proceeds to beat the ever-loving snot out of him and say, "You're not going to hurt my family anymore." But he also, not only does he blame him for what happens to Batman here, but he also blames him for what has happened with Damian, the path Damian
Hmm.
is on. And like you can tell, like Alfred tries to bring Damian back a couple times throughout this, and Alfred kicks the crap out of Superman, picks Batman up, and Bruce is like, "What about?" And Alfred cuts him off and says, "There's nothing here worth saving." And I'm like, "That's just fantastic. That was one of my favorite moments of the entire year one." And it was, I just love Alfred, man. I really do, especially in the story.
Yeah, and we end with Superman in the United Nations basically announcing like he's basically announcing he's taking over. And he's got an army, not just a super army, legit has an army. And I think he said it best offline. This is very reminiscent and had to have been Zack Snyder looking at this because you're right, this is very eerily similar to the Superman army in the Nightmare sequence.
Yeah, and like that just paints even more of a positive light for that movie for me because this shows like Superman going out the deep end, and that's what that nightmare scene was about. And the patches on their side, the way they were like their faces are covered, it's all eerily similar to what Tom Taylor showed there. And uh, that was a shocking thing that he brought out an army. That's what Batman's fear was, that he would not only do this, but he would police the world after it was done. And Superman even said that we need to get people on the ground because all our work could be undone.
Hmm. And we bring an end to year one. It is a very like I said, there were so many different gut punches in these 12 issues, or 36
In my case.
in your case. But it's man, I mean, like bravo to this first. I mean, I have never seen a comic based on, in this case, a video game, just blow me away.
Yeah, it's just shocking to see your heroes. There's stuff that we didn't even touch on, like the kid from Australia that Superman destroys, and then Flash goes to visit him, and because Batman basically manipulates him to go there, because Batman even says, "I haven't given up on you yet, Flash." and he goes and sees that all those heroes were his heroes. He met that kid and took a picture with him and didn't even remember it. And all that stuff will contribute to Barry's decisions going forward.
Hey everyone, before we go to the next topic, we are going to head into some ads that help the Geek Ultimate Alliance keep the lights on. We don't get to choose what ads come on, and they sometimes can be a bit loud, so I want to give you a 3 count in order to give you the opportunity to turn your volume down before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be back in a little bit. Yeah, and like we said, we just focused on kind of really key moments, but there's so much more here, listeners. If you have not gotten a chance to even delve into this, like I said, if you're a subscriber, DC Universe, it's all there. Do yourself a favor, read this. It is outstanding. I can't wait to start getting into the next years of Injustice 1. So, as we start heading to the end of the episode, the impact beyond the initial release, this the first chapter of Injustice was the best-selling single-issue comic on Amazon Kindle and the best-selling superhero comic. And for a while, it was sitting on top of the likes. It was beating out the sales of Watchmen and The Dark Knight Returns. It was also the top-selling comic on the DC Comics app. You can't get any bigger than that when and Taylor just couldn't express even more how grateful he was to everyone who downloaded it. It spun off 5 years for just one game. It led to Injustice 2 comic, 36 issues with 2 annuals, taking place between the first and second game, a spin-off, Injustice Ground Zero. This is done from the point of view of Harley Quinn, and Injustice versus Masters of the Universe. It follows an alternate ending of the game. I won't spoil the ending of the game, but it is an alternate ending of the game that comic is based off of. So I mean, this out 5 years, a second game, a second series of comics. I mean, man, what a gigantic impact.
Just a great series, just a great run, and I can't thank Tom Taylor enough because, like you said, like you basically gave the background information on in the interviews. He's not coming in not really caring about these heroes. He grew up with these heroes like you and I did. These heroes are his most important heroes, and he always wanted to write Superman. So to see him have to do this as his first foray into DC, I'm also a little sad for him that that's how he had to go immediately. But in terms of debuts, I can't think of many more that are this solid because it's long. They asked him to do a certain thing, and he knocked it out of the park for me. It made me immediately read Deceased when I found out who was writing it, because that's how much I give him, especially when he has free reign to do whatever he wants, and it won't affect the main DC continuity. I think anyone that has issue with that, that's what they should focus on first and foremost. That this doesn't affect the main DC continuity in comics. This is not going to change anything about your Batman 700 or your Superman 1000. None of this plays into that. So that's where I think these comics can do a lot more that they don't normally do, is these Elseworld stories. I'd like to see a lot more of them. And if they're anything like this, they have me. This is one of my favorite stories, and I can't thank you enough for having me on to talk about it, Chris. It's just fantastic.
Thank you for getting me to even dive deeper. And I mean, I also forgot a New York Times best-selling, series at that point too. So you've talked about like why it's one of your favorite impacts, and could you see this ever becoming, it's become a video. It's obviously the video game came first, but would you ever seeing? I know some people adapt all the cinematic scenes, but could you ever see this ever being done on the are we going to see this ever on the big screen, or even through a TV show or an animated show?
I would love it, but I'm going to say no, considering the backlash PBS got. I don't see them coming anywhere near that anytime soon. Maybe an animated series. I could see something like that coming on. I think that would be the way to go I would love to see it on a big screen myself personally, but I don't see us getting that anytime soon. Maybe when we're older and a lot grayer, maybe. But for now,
Yeah.
I don't think we should get our hopes up, unfortunately.
Nah, yeah, I agree. Again, we have the games, we have the cinematics at that point, so I mean, it's kind of been done. But you're right; it would be cool, kind of seeing this in some, maybe in an animated form, and a very clearly Elseworlds kind of label, or you could do it the print form, Black Label at that point. But um, so my final questions to you are, who would you recommend this series to, and what is your elevator pitch to someone who's never read this?
I would recommend it to anyone that enjoyed Man of Steel and BBS, in my opinion. I think that some of the stuff in that is influenced from this. We talked about it throughout. Those are my two favorite DC movies anyway. I always end up referencing them or talking about them for some reason. Uh, but I would tell people that Superman is dealt his first real tragedy in life. He has a choice to make, and Batman stands opposed to him if he makes the wrong choice.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So before we close out the show, any final thoughts?
I can't wait to come back and talk year two with you at some point. I'm glad I'll have a little pause before I got to reread year two, because
Mm-hmm.
year one was a bit of a, it wasn't a labor, we'll call it a labor of love, we'll say, to to just go through those 36 issues digitally. Uh, that was. I'm sorry. I promised the listeners I will write them down three issues at a time next time, and have a better uh, layout so that I'm not asking Chris what's going on multiple times.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. It's me forgetting that you've got them digitally, and I mean I've got DC Universe, so I could do it like that, but I can definitely we can come together and make this work again. So no, I can't wait to delve into this again with you and read it too. So thank you so much for coming on. I know, like you said, you and I have become very fast friends, being kind of co-hosts with Greg, Nathan, and Katie on the Super Civil Servants podcast. But I appreciate you making your first appearance on my show. So thank you so much for coming on. And so as we close this out, tell us how people can follow you, and actually plug your show as well.
Yeah, my not so much work put into it show as this, but you can find me on Twitter at Travis_156. You can drop me a line and we can chat about DC, Marvel, anything comic book related. I'm all for it. If I haven't seen it, give me your recommendations. If I haven't read it, just throw them at me. I'm always ready to dive in. DC Universe, just please put out a comic reader just give us your comic reader. That's all I ask. I don't want the content. I just want the comic reader. You can find my podcast on any podcast apps, superhero discussions. I just basically rant and rave. Not really. I just talk about things that I enjoy from not only the DC but the Marvel universe as well. So anywhere you can find that on any of your podcasting apps.
Cool. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on. And so thank you, as always, listeners. We've come to an end of another episode of World's Finest True Believers. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at Finest Believers, and me personally at Chris Balga. You can email the show at worldsfinesttruebelievers@gmail.com. Feel free to tweet or email if you want to be a guest, provide feedback, and ask me any questions. Continue to please review the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Again, always helps that algorithm, brings it to new fans and listeners. And whatever platform you listen to, I'm so thankful you all take the time and enjoy the show. It is, as always, you guys are truly world's finest true believers. And whenever you're listening to this, morning, evening, afternoon, evening, or late into the night, I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. I will be talking to you soon. Have a great one. Bye-bye, everyone.
Later, everyone.